session for today. The program for today, we have committee sessions scheduled for 1400 to 1530, coffee break at 1530 to 1600, sponsored by Qatar, and then 1600 to 1700. As you would recall, yesterday we were in the midst of discussion on agenda item 3.5, large batch of papers. We will continue that today and then get into the draft reports of Committee A on agenda item 1 and the draft report of Committee A on agenda item 2. As a reminder, agenda item 3.5, other ATM issues, were discussed in 4 batches. We completed presentation and discussion in 3 batches. On batch 4, which included working papers 114 by Canada, 115 by Canada, and 245 by Ukraine, we completed the presentations and were in the middle of our discussions. So we'd like to continue our discussion today. The floor is open for discussion. Okay, I see Falpa.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon to everyone. ICAO supports the recommendations in Working Paper 115 from Canada. Ambiguity in communications or differences in phraseology for the same desired outcome imposes an unavoidable risk to aviation safety. Development of and adhering to globally harmonized phraseology is a critical link in the aviation safety chain. Phraseology is a code. Deviations from that code incite ambiguity and assumptions which often differ in the understanding between the crew and the controller. Therefore, ICAO not only supports the recommendations contained in Working Paper 115, but also the comments made by FATCA yesterday afternoon concerning the need for dedicated training and regular assessments of both pilots and controllers. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Falpa. Turkey.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We would like to thank Ukraine for the paper 245. It's an important issue that we need to tackle. Turkey monitors the situation in the region very carefully and does her best to provide air transport management services in an extremely congested corridor. We attach utmost importance to the air transport safety in the North Black Sea, which concerns us as Turkey directly. Therefore, we believe that regional states that are in disagreement should try to pursue technical talks and find a solution to the ongoing problems. Turkey is ready to support all efforts on every platform. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Turkey. France.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, sir, and good afternoon, everyone. The delegation thanks Ukraine for WP 245. This document recalls that ICAO has referred to a regional deficiency for the Russian Federation because it is acting not in accordance with the ICAO rules, and this has a significant impact on passenger air traffic over the Black Sea and has done for the last 4 years. The action requested by ICAO itself and the withdrawal from of the publications as requested by WP 245 from Ukraine are things which our delegation supports. France also reasserts its commitment to the territorial integrity of Ukraine, which is the subject of UNGA Resolution 68/262, which is valid for all states and regional international organizations, and specifically in this case, our organization, ICAO. Thank you.
Thank you, France. Italy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and we want to support IFALPA in Working Paper 115 and the recommendation, except the first one, And we don't believe that is the case to have a dedicated manual for PBN phraseology. I would like to prefer that the PBN phraseology is dealt with in the usual manuals. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Italy. Russian Federation.
Distinguished Chair, ladies and gentlemen, the Russian Federation does not support Working Paper 245 submitted by Ukraine. Moreover, we express our disagreement with respect to the section on Simferopol FIR. Since we are active users of Simferopol FIR, we feel that in order to guarantee safety of flights, the Russian Federation is compelled to issue AIPs for the airspace in that region. Russia calls into question the ability of Ukraine to guarantee safety and operations in the Simferopol FIR. So we call on the International Aviation Organization to organize an independent technical assessment of the possibilities of the countries in the Black Sea region to guarantee the safety of operations in the Simferopol FIR. Thank you.
Thank you, Russian Federation. Spain.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you, Chair. In document 115, we see a series of interesting proposals, and we support Italy's statement with some additional considerations about the need to have a special document on this. So we support the concept and support what Italy has said. Furthermore, our delegation takes note with concern of the information in WP245 from Ukraine pertaining to the Simferopol FIR. At the same time, we thank the Secretariat for the oral explanation given regarding the talks underway in the so-called Black Sea Task Force. Spain is one of the some 100 countries who endorsed Resolution 68/262 of the UN General Assembly in consistency with the respect we afford territorial integrity of countries and states, integrity which we understand as the essential platform for global peace. As regards air navigation safety, which is the key issue at our conference, we'd like to recall for the colleagues that there are two paradigms which at present seem to be immutable and unchangeable. The first paradigm is that aircraft need separation amongst themselves, and that's a service provided by the air traffic services, the ATCs, and there can only be unequivocal consistency between this and the air traffic control, and therefore there's a bionomic relationship between the area and the state which is responsible for safety. Actions which introduce ambiguity in the aircraft ATC relationship generate unnecessary risks for air traffic and thereby undermining aviation safety. This circumstance is all the more important in airspace over the high seas, where the member states of ICAO pledge under Article 12 of the Chicago Convention to apply the standards and recommended practices of this organization without any scope for divergence. That is why we request the parties involved to commit themselves to avoiding any potential risk to air traffic in keeping with the Chicago Convention and its annexes. We also request the ICAO Secretariat to step up its efforts within the Black Sea Task Force in order to make progress to this end. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Spain and Germany.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I, in fact, have to make two statements. First, I speak on behalf of Germany. We acknowledge and are concerned about the situation described in WP 245, causing detrimental implications on aviation. It is ICAO that is providing global rules and good practices to cater for safe and efficient aviation worldwide. We therefore like to recall the need for all partners in the ICAO community to comply with the Chicago Convention and provisions of associated annexes in order to support this common goal of safe and efficient air transport. In this respect, we support WP 245. Now, I have been requested by my colleague from Georgia, who had to depart yesterday, on Georgia's behalf to make the following statement. Georgia supports WP 245 presented by Ukraine. Georgia like to underline that resolution of the particular problem is first of all in the interest of airspace users and traveling public overall. Adherence to principles, provisions and standards stemming from the Chicago Convention and its annexes by all member states are of utmost importance to ensure safety, security and efficiency in aviation. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Germany. Canada.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, sir. With respect to WP 245, we support the position of France, and we support the recommendations in that working paper. Canada feels that there can only be one country responsible for international airspace in a given area, and we therefore strongly support the position of our Ukrainian colleagues regarding potential confusion and infringement of the Chicago Convention, as well as possible impairment of aviation safety. We cannot support Russia's recommendation for a technical assessment in this region because the responsibility in this region is very clear pursuant to ICAO Council decisions. Thank you.
Thank you, Canada. United States.
Thank you. In addition to our comments yesterday on 245, the United States would also like to comment on 114, in which we feel that a deadline of 2030 is a little premature. We suggest instead that the issue of True North become part of the ICAO work program to do a full evaluation of the cost, benefits, and time to change all the procedures and any unforeseen safety issues that might arise. Thank you.
Thank you, United States. Ukraine.
Thank you, sir, and good afternoon, everyone. And thank you for this possibility to come back on document WP 245 submitted by Ukraine with respect to air navigation information. This is to do with international high seas and the standards and recommended practices of ICAO. We have an official position. We'd like to recall that it's been confirmed by the Secretariat. Only Ukraine is responsible for this international airspace with respect to ATS, and this has been the case ever since 1997. As regards technical possibilities for providing ATS services, this relevant information has been submitted by Ukraine and has also submitted at all relevant international levels, including through our active involvement in the Black Sea Task Force. And our materials have also been submitted to the ICAO Secretariat, and we have official confirmation that Ukraine has all the necessary technical possibilities for providing air traffic services, including search and rescue in this space. At present, if we come back to our document, there is only one obstacle to a normal resumption of flights, and that obstacle has been clearly determined including in the NPG decisions, and that is the publications of the Russian Federation regarding the high seas in the Simferopol FIR, which are not in keeping with the standards of ICAO. And our paper proposes the necessary measures be taken and calls on Russia as a member state of ICAO and a member of the Council of ICAO to implement the standards of ICAO and cancel these publications regarding the high seas in the Simferopol FIR and act exclusively in accordance with the regulatory materials of ICAO. Thank you for this opportunity to speak.
Thank you, Ukraine. Jordan?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Jordan supporting working paper 115 as presented by Canada. Thank you.
Thank you, Jordan. I see no one else wishing to speak, so we will take the time to sum up discussions on these three working papers. Thank you. I now present the summary for batch 4 under agenda item 3.5 in regard to working papers 114, 115, and 245. Regarding the concept of True North as a reference for all aviation operations, the attention of the committee was drawn to the conclusion of the 12th Air Navigation Conference in 2012 on the same subject, where states were asked to conduct technical and operational impact assessments as well as estimate the cost of the proposed change. The committee was of the view that ICAO should investigate the technical and operational impact and or merits as well as the potential cost of the proposed change across the spectrum of aviation operations. The committee noted that the subject of the use of standardized phraseology was on the active work program of the organization and agreed that the contents of working paper 115 should be forwarded to the appropriate expert group. Noting that certain individual parts of the paper did not meet universal appeal, this appeared to be the best course of action. Concerning the matters raised in working paper 245, which provided information on the current situation on air traffic management, aspects within airspace under responsibility of Ukraine relating to conflict zone airspace management. The committee was informed of the Black Sea Task Force process being used to continue to further explore potential solutions for the normalization of the airspace. This included a potential phased approach to help to ease the traffic flows, capacity, and ATC workload issues in the adjacent FIRs, especially in view of the ongoing airspace optimization projects in these areas and the opening of the new Istanbul airport. The committee appreciated the commitment of all states to cooperate to ensure safety of flight operations in the high seas over the Black Sea, and to refrain from any actions that may directly or indirectly affect the safety of operations. The committee urged ICAO to step up efforts to work with all the states to identify potential solutions. The committee also noted that the European Air Navigation Planning Group was scheduled to discuss the report of the most recent Black Sea Task Force report at its 60th meeting in November 2018. Thank you. Okay, we now move to the draft report of Committee A on Agenda Item 1. And the attached draft report on Agenda Item 1 is presented for approval by Committee A for submission to the plenary. On the report, we'll take each agenda item and we will proceed through the paragraph by paragraph for each report and then to the recommendations. I will simply ask for any substantial changes to the report as presented that you believe, if you believe that the report as presented did not capture the intentions of the committee. If you have direct proposed changes, we'll then take those changes for consideration. So, agenda item 1, Air Navigation Global Strategy. 1.1, Vision and Overview of the 6th edition of the Global Air Navigation Plan. 1.2, Air Navigation Performance Improvement and Measurements through the Aviation System Block Upgrades and Basic Building Blocks Framework. Is there any proposed change to paragraph 1.1? Thank you. Any proposed change to paragraph 1.2? Any proposed change to paragraph 1.3? Can I see Netherlands?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Good afternoon. We have one proposal for paragraph 1.2 in line 8, where we would propose to replace agreed in principle with by the word welcome, same as also used in the text of the recommendations. Thank you.
Thank you, Netherlands. Is there any objection to that change by the committee? Yeah, I'm not seeing who. Can you? Is this the Republic of Korea?
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, everyone. Republic of Korea would like to add a sentence in paragraph 1.3 It is about the explanation of what was presented and agreed regarding working paper 325 presented by Korea. Just before the last sentence in paragraph 1.3, the committee discussed and agreed a series of considerations in updating the GANP and the ASBU presented in AN Conference 13, Working Paper 235 by the Republic of Korea, which highlighted the clearer and more logical linkage between the GANP and its supporting documents, and the importance of readability, transparency, stability of the web-based GANP and the ASBU. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, the Secretary would like to request some clarification.
Hello, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So we tried to, in fact, to reflect all the proposals that were agreed in the working paper from South Korea. That is why in the last sentence we said, regarding the relationship between the GANP and other relevant ICAO documentation, including regional documentation, as agreed in working paper 235 presented by Korea, the committee was informed that such work would be addressed as part of the completion of the global strategic level of the GANP. Just before the discussion the last day, the Secretariat made some clarifications by saying that some of the proposals that were made in the paper from South Korea were already ongoing work on the development of the GANP for the next assembly. Thank you very much.
So to comment to the Republic of Korea, the Secretary is saying that they believe that the paragraph as stands correctly captures the intention of the Republic of Korea. Do you accept the explanation of the Secretariat, or would you still like to propose a change?
Thank you, Chair and Secretariat. The Republic of Korea would like to include what we discussed about this, so I would like to change some sentences. The committee discussed the series of consideration, not included, agreed. It is okay? I just would like to add the overview of the working paper 235.
Thank you. I would like to ask the committee if they accept the proposal of the Republic of Korea, or if they would like to leave the paragraph as is. Can you see Australia?
Thank you, Chair. I think my Korean colleague wants to have the words readability, transparency and stability, because that is conveying their concerns about the situation. So as it has been drafted by the Secretariat, there is no mention of what the concerns are. So I think with the addition of those few words, I think that would hopefully meet our Korean colleagues' request.
Okay, thank you. We'll take Australia's intervention as an acceptance of the proposal by South Korea, by Republic of Korea, sorry, and Germany.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was about to give support to Korea's request. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So the proposed addition by Republic of Korea is accepted, and we'd like you to send that directly to the Secretariat, please. Just going back to 1.2, I just wanted to confirm that the committee was in support of the change proposed by the Netherlands. Yeah. Okay, thank you. Council?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, we also have one suggestion for paragraph 1.2 in the 5th line, where it says, therefore provide strategic guidelines. Since that could be wrongly indicated, perhaps we should say direction instead of guidelines. Thank you.
Is there support for that change? Okay, I'm seeing no indication of support for the change. Paragraph 1.4. Netherlands?
Yes, sorry, thank you, Chair. We would like to make a proposal to delete from paragraph 1.4 in the 5th line, in order to not leave any stakeholder behind. We did not really saw that as a very friendly or maybe even a little bit negative language, and we think we can do without. Thank you.
Is there support for this change by the committee? Yes. I'm seeing support for the change. Paragraph 1.5. Australia.
Thank you, Chair. Just clarification on paragraph 1.4. The expression is used future versions of the GANP. Can I be clear? What we are saying is that these topics, UAS, traffic management, GADS, Global Aviation Internet Network, we are not talking about the version of the GANP that I understand the Secretariat is keen to have go to next year's assembly. So what we're actually talking about is the GANP, next version of the GANP that would go to the 2022 assembly. Thank you, Chair.
That's good. Yeah. And just to clarify, we are dealing with 1.5, right? Not 1.4. 1.4. No, 1.4.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Australia. In fact, when we said into future editions in the GANP, we are assuming that all these concepts will be included in the next edition of the GANP, so the edition that we are proposing for endorsement of the next assembly, next year, the 40th assembly. And just to clarify that there is already ongoing work that has been done in these matters, and we will try to incorporate as much of these subjects as we can in the next edition of the GANP. However, there are things that have not been included, such as big data, and that's why we prefer to keep it generic and not specified which is the specific edition that would be included in this, that this work would be included in. Thank you.
Okay. Australia.
Thank you. So I think I got out of that some of these topics might find their way into next year's GANP because there's work been done on it before. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. We move to 1.5. Is it acceptable? Any proposal for change? Okay, I'm seeing none. 1.6. Okay, I'm seeing no proposal for change in 1.6, 1.7. Netherlands.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I would like to make 3 proposals for paragraph 1.7, and I'd like to do them one by one. The first proposal would be to include at the end of the first line, after management process, in order to approve agility as. So then the sentence would read, the ASBU framework update and change management process in order to improve agility as proposed in ANC Conference 13, Working Paper 19, etc. Could I continue? The second proposal would be in line 3, where we would like to say, and agree to its implementation as soon as possible, and then include, provided transparency and stability are ensured. So we would like to delete in order to improve, but to say, provided transparency and stability are ensured, to make it.
You can continue, Netherlands.
And the third proposal would be in line, I think it's line 8, where we would like to include the current sentence is, the committee agreed that the relationship between ASBUs and BBBs and their impact on the regional plans should be clear within the GANP. And then we would like to add, through mapping to the global strategic level, through a further detailed conceptual roadmap. So we would like to make the link with the conceptual roadmap.
Hello, thank you very much. In fact, this sentence does not address the mapping between the ASBUs and the conceptual roadmap. The objective of this sentence is to clarify how the global plan is aligned with the regional plan. The mapping between the strategic and the technical level is made in paragraph, what is it? 1 second, please. Where is it? So where is it? 1 second.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry for that. So if you go to paragraph 1.6 and is in line 4, we say the committee noted the process and guidance principles behind the ASBU framework update, in particular its relationship with the conceptual roadmap and future research. And then it continues, the committee also noted the benefits and cooperation. No, 1 second. Where is it? 1 second.
Okay, whilst we look for that, I'm asking for support for the first 2 proposals by the Netherlands. Are there any objections to these being added? Ayata, are you objecting to this, or you have another comment?
Mr. Chairman, we'd like to make an additional edit when available.
Okay, thanks. We would take that we have support for the first two items, and we will have the clarification from the Secretary.
Sorry for that. So thank you, Mr. Chairman. If you go to paragraph 1.2 in line 4, you say to steer and nurture this transformation, the committee agreed that the global strategic level of the GANP was crucial to the evolution of the global navigation system and should therefore provide guidelines and highlighting in working paper, as highlighted in working paper 35. The committee therefore, no, it's not there. Where is it? No. Sorry. In paragraph 1.3, okay, in line 5, it says, regarding the relationship between the GANP and, in line 4, and that the global technical level should be mapped to the global strategic level within the GANP. So our intention with that sentence is to clarify that the ASBUs should be linked with the conceptual roadmap. While in the order paragraph, the purpose of that sentence was to clarify that we should make clear which is the alignment between the global plan and the regional plans. Thank you, and sorry, apologies.
Thank you. Ayata?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In addition to we support the intervention made by the Netherlands, but we'd also like to add an additional small edit. In section 1.7, second line after the words working paper 19, we'd like to add a full stop followed by the committee also discussed the need to provide a more simplified construct and agreed to its implementation as soon as possible in order to provide transparency and stability. It would in essence just replace that last portion of the sentence. And I can send that edit to the Secretariat.
Is there support for this change by Ayata? Yeah? Thank you. So I'm seeing support, and can you please send it to the Secretary? So we move on from 1.7 to 1.8. Australia?
You're too quick for me, Chair. I just wanted to make a fairly important comment about 1.7. This paragraph is written as if the BBBs are across the line. I'm not aware that this conference has agreed to that. My understanding is that we said we would, quote, consider it. Yet this is written about the BBB framework. I think we need perhaps the word proposed framework or proposed concept. I'm not aware that the conference has agreed to the BBBs, Chair.
Secretary?
And thank you, Australia. It was on our understanding from the last intervention of what the BBBs are, that the concept as a whole, it was accepted in order to align the global plan with the regional plan. However, the committee would like to consider this version that we are presenting to this conference. Thank you.
Australia?
I think I'd still like the word proposed BBB framework, Chair. And can I also get clarification of the fact that a comment which was made, a good clarifying comment that was made in relation to what the BBBs are supposedly trying to achieve by putting in after the words, I think it's about the 8th line, as specified in ICAO provisions, comma, representing a baseline level of air navigation services. That's my best understanding at this stage as to what the BBBs might be. But I think it would be nice, Chair, if we put the word proposed BBB framework into the document. Thank you.
Do we have support of the committee on the proposal by Australia? I'm seeing the United Arab Emirates and New Zealand, Germany confirm that this is proposal for the change. Okay, Germany?
Sorry, Mr. Chairman, I was still on the other one, so that's why I took it back.
Republic of Korea?
Thank you, Chair. Republic of Korea fully supported in Australia's proposal. Thank you.
New Zealand?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Republic of Korea stole my words. I was going to say the exact same thing with regards to supporting the Australian amendment.
Okay, we'll take it that there's support for the change proposed by Australia. And Australia, can you just send the change to the Secretariat, please? Netherlands, you wish to speak on 1.7 or 1.8?
Well, yeah, it's on 1.7 and also the how the Secretariat answered to our third proposal and the relation with paragraph 1.3, where I think indeed you are right that there is the text about the mapping of the global strategic level within the GANP. But I was wondering whether it would be possible to add to that sentence in 1.3 the words through a further detailed conceptual roadmap, so that we do take that element on board, but then in paragraph 1.3. Thank you.
Is there support for that change by the Netherlands to 1.3? Yes, I'm seeing support. Thank you. Anything further on 1.7? Okay, thank you. We move to 1.8. Okay, I'm seeing no indication for change to 1.8, no, 1.9. Saudi Arabia.
Thank you, Chair. In WP 265, Saudi Arabia have proposed that the sharing should consider the new structures of GANP and associated relevant data and information with the relevant layer and component. If the committee agree, Saudi Arabia would like to propose to add the following sentence in line 5 after industry levels, then another sentence, the shared material should be linked to the appropriate layer, component, or element of the GANP and ASBUs. If the committee agree, I can send the sentence to the Secretariat.
Okay, is there support from the committee for this? Yeah. Thank you. Australia?
Thank you, Chair. Australia would like to add a sentence at the end of this paragraph, which would read, the committee acknowledged that as well as the web portal, there needed to be a concise executive summary, brackets, printable version of the GANP, which outlined its key policies, priorities and strategies, to ensure that the GAMP was easily accessible to all states and key decision makers. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Any objection to this from the committee? Okay, I see no objection, and I will take that 1.9 as complete. 1.10. Okay, I'm seeing no proposal for change. 1.11. Netherlands.
Yes, thank you, Chair. We would like to make a proposal at the end of 1.11 to add the following words: as required for subsequent endorsement at the 40th session of the ICAO Assembly. So then it would read, the panel project team to progress the work on the GAMP as required for subsequent endorsement at the 40th session of the ICAO Assembly. With this addition, we think we aim the work of this group exactly to what it, or that we would like it to do, namely to have the GAMP ready for endorsement next year. Thank you.
We will take a clarification from the Secretary.
Thanks, Chair, and good morning all. Yeah, we've got a small problem with that. We hear you, and we've heard that comment from a number of people so far in this committee. But remember, we've got to get the papers ready for the next Assembly by March next year. We can't get that group up and running by March next year, much less give them the time to do the work. So we hear you loud and clear that you want a global air navigation study group represented from all around the world and with some industry and so on. So we'll set that up. But if you want the 6th edition of the Global Air Navigation Plan by the 40th Assembly, you have to let us continue our work as it is at the moment so that we can get those elements done in time for the 40th Assembly. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Netherlands and committee confirm that you accept the explanation of the Secretariat. Okay, thank you. Australia, you had a comment on 1.11?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I think the Secretary has explained part of this, so I'm sure he'll be happy with these words then. The committee requested the establishment of a GAN study group, with nominations sought from member states from all regions, as well as including some members from the GAMP Vision team and the ASBU project team. I would really like to see this as a new group with members from all regions, with some members of the two existing groups. The other thing that I'd like clarification on is the process in terms of what the GAMP that is going to be put to the Assembly next year actually is. Is it the web portal? Is that the GAMP that is going to the Assembly next year? Hopefully now including the executive summary that this conference has agreed upon with the key policies, priorities and strategies. And in terms of who is presenting that to the Council, is that the Secretariat? Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, everyone, and thanks, Australia, for the questions. I think it's a good point to clarify what we're doing with the Global Air Navigation Plan, and the answer is yes, we are moving, as presented in the Secretary working papers, the GAMP from a hard copy document to a digital version of the GAMP. So what will be put for endorsement the next Assembly is the electronic version of the GAMP represented by the portal with all the resources. Just to attend the request from the states at the last assembly that you should improve readability, visibility, and expedite the process used to update mainly the aviation system block upgrades framework. So the answer is yes. What is going to be put to the assembly next year is the digital version of the Global Aviation Plan represented by the portal. Thank you.
Okay, are there any objections to the proposal made by Australia to amend 1.11? Okay, I see Colombia.
Gracias, señor presidente.
Thank you, Sam. I have a question on Australia's intervention drafting this paragraph, and it's to do with who is to be in this study group. Are they people already working in ICAO or individuals in the States who are going to be members of such a group? Thank you.
This would be states and international organizations. Okay, with that clarification, I take it that there is no objection to the proposed amendment from Australia. I see Netherlands.
Yeah, sorry, I have no objection against the proposal of Australia. I wanted to come in on our comments, but if that's okay. And I understood the explanation of the Secretariat and also, let's say, the division of work, who is doing the work on the GANP and the study group. And I also think that in the recommendations there is a clear goal that there will be an endorsement at the Assembly next year. But in that situation I was wondering whether it would be possible for the Secretariat to include maybe in the report a better than description of how this study group will be involved in the work, because now it looks like they are doing the work, but that is not maybe the right expression of the group, because I think then formally the Secretariat, let's say, does the work, and the study group is in a way involved in the work of the on the GANP. Maybe you could find the right wording to express the right involvement of the study group then in the work on the GANP, if I make myself clear. Sorry.
Thanks. Sorry, I wasn't clear enough with my last intervention. So there have been some working groups working on different elements of the GANP. As you are aware from the papers, they're at 4 different levels now. So there are different working groups depending on what level of the GANP was being amended for version 6. At the moment, those working groups are extant, but they're creatures of the Secretariat, even though they involve lots of members from states and international organisations. What we've heard clearly from this committee is that they'd like those groups formalised under a Global Air Navigation Plan Study Group in the same format as we have for the Global Aviation Safety Plan. We will do that, but we won't stop the work in the meantime because we have to deliver by the next Assembly. So we'll get on with that. But to be very, very clear, these groups develop recommendations, and then it is the Air Navigation Commission that makes the final recommendation for the Global Air Navigation Plan to the Council, and the Council makes the decision. So the decisions aren't made in the Secretariat, they're not made in those study groups, they're not even made in the Commission. But the Commission makes the final recommendation to the Council, and the Council adopts or not as they see fit. So that's the process that we use, and what we're talking about here is the procedure that we use to develop those recommendations. And at the moment we have a process. We've heard that you'd like it expanded. We're comfortable to do that, but we need to get on with it if we're going to meet those deadlines you've asked us for, which is the next Assembly. So if you're comfortable with that explanation, we'll go ahead. If you have some other words you want us to put in there, by all means send them to us and we'll try and fit them in. But as long as you're comfortable with the intent of what we're trying to do there. Thanks, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you. So Netherlands is comfortable with the clarification. Australia?
Yes, just to help my colleague from the Netherlands, I think if Para 111 finishes up with the words to progress future versions of the GAMP, at the moment it's got a broad statement to progress the work of the GAMP.
Okay, thank you. We'll take that on board. .12. Okay, thank you. So we will move to 1.13, the recommendations. A, I see Saudi Arabia.
Thank you, Chair. I have some minor changes on recommendation E, G, and H. Shall I say them all or start with E? Okay, I'll start with E. We would like to add after the end of the word GAMP, considering or based on the outcome of the Air Navigation Conference 13. Should I go with the second one?
Okay, thanks. Is there any objection to that change from Saudi Arabia? Okay, I see none. Is there an agreement to recommendation B? Australia?
I'm sorry, Chair, you tricked me there. I thought we were going to do all the Saudi Arabia ones together, but let me have what we would suggest is an expanded version of A, which reflects what we've just inserted into paragraph 109. Agree that the future GAMP be available as a web-based platform, including a concise executive summary (brackets printable), which outlines its key policies, priorities and strategies to ensure that the GAMP was easily accessible to all states and key decision makers. And then I think we include a comment from my colleague from Saudi Arabia as agreed at the conference. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. That is in line with what Australia proposed for the paragraph before. So if there's no objections, we would include that change along with the change with Saudi Arabia. And Australia, can you send the text to the Secretariat, please? And B? Germany.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was about to make a proposal to A. Now, with the Australian proposal, we would need to see that one. That may cover our point, but without reading it, I cannot take a final stance at this moment. I can read out at least what our proposal would have been. To expand recommendation A to read agree to the migration of the global air navigation plan (brackets) to a web-based platform, and that the strategic level as well as an executive summary would be available as a web-based document. So I do have the feeling this could come close with the Australian, but we would need to see the text from Australia. Thank you.
Australia, can you repeat your statement?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, we can. Agree that the future GAMP be available as a web-based platform, including a concise executive summary (brackets printable), which outlined its key policies, priorities and strategies to ensure that the GANP was easily accessible to all states and key decision makers, and then we'd add the Saudi Arabian comment as agreed at this conference. I think my colleague has added the word a web version perhaps of the executive summary. We could actually have printable and web version. I think we just need both. Thank you.
Joanie?
Thank you. We can go with the Australian formulation. The only thing we would like to add is the notion of a strategic level, so that a strategic level as well as an executive summary. That would be our additional point. Yeah. Okay, thanks very much.
Okay, thank you. So if there's no objection to these changes, I'll ask Germany to coordinate with Australia and send the text to the Secretary. Yeah. B. C. D. Netherlands.
Yes, thank you, Chair. On recommendation D, we would like to make the proposal to change the word integrated into aligned, because for us reading separate but integrated looked a little bit contradictory, where we think specifically the alignment between the GANP and the GASP is what we try to and want to achieve.
Thank you, Netherlands. Is there any objection to this proposed change? No. Colombia, speaking on D.
Gracias, señor.
Thank you. Chair, now my colleague has already said what I was going to say. I haven't read the English version, but in Spanish it's not clear. It says the GANP is different but integrated. And then it refers to the Global Aviation Safety Plan. I don't think this is the intention. I think the GANP and GASP are supposed to be harmonized and aligned. Thank you.
And thank you, and I'll take it that the committee is in agreement with this change. We move to E. Australia.
In light of our recent discussion, Chair, can I suggest establish a GANP study group comprised of member states from all regions to undertake future updates of the GANP?
Thank you. Any objections to the change proposed by Australia? No. F. Ayata.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Obviously, these groups are integrated by states and components of the industry, so if we could add to that states from the region and industry. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Any objections? No. F. Germany, you wanted to speak on?
Yes, sorry, Mr. Chairman, it's going on quite quickly. Still on E, what we would like to see here is also a reference to the need for completion or an update of the GANP, so to be ready to be endorsed at the 40th Assembly. That would, in our view, be in line with the discussion that we had before. Otherwise, I do not understand what we discussed before.
Okay, thank you, Jeremy. So that change was proposed in A, that it would be ready for the 40th Assembly. And the point made before is that the study group would not be able to do something in time for the 40th Assembly, but for future editions of the GANP. One of the proposals made by Saudi Arabia for A was to add that it should be ready for the 40th Assembly. Saudi Arabia.
Thank you, Chair. I want to add a sentence on the H, so it would read after the GANP, and support the deployment and implementation of regional and national air navigation plan. I think it's not about training and seminar, it's more than that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Saudi Arabia, but I'm going to come back to you as we're still on E. Australia?
Thank you, Chair. Can I refer my German colleague to J? Continue to work with states, international organisations, ATM, etc., as required for subsequent endorsement at the 40th session of the ICAO Assembly. I think that should cover his point. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So we are happy with E, and we move to F. Thank you. G. Saudi Arabia and G.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think I confused. I'm sorry for that. But now I'm going back to G. So the sentence that I'm proposing is in G. So I would like to propose that after the GANP, and support the deployment and implementation of regional and national air navigation plan.
Any objections to the change proposed by Saudi Arabia? I see none. H. New Zealand.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wonder whether or not we need to add some words to H to make it absolutely clear that the National Air Navigation Plan template its use is voluntary and it's not actually compulsory. So I'm not too concerned about exactly how that's done, but perhaps after the first comma, so develop a National Air Navigation Plan template available for voluntary use by states, and then carry on as part of the 6th edition of the GANP.
Are there any objections to this proposal by New Zealand? I see none, so we'll take that on board. You need the text, or you did? Yeah. Saudi Arabia.
Thank you, Chair. I think I have a problem of understanding the last sentence, the last word of the bullet H, where it says while taking into consideration neighboring requirement, as the national plan should be aligned with the regional and global plan. I don't see there is a need that, not unless the Secretariat has some clarification.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Saudi Arabia. In fact, here what it means is that sometimes there are regional agreements at the regional level. However, there are some times where two states, they have more interaction, and therefore they have specific requirements of them that they are not specific regional requirements. So what we are trying to highlight with these words is the coordination of the National Navigation Plan with the neighboring states. Thank you.
Yes, Saudi Arabia. Okay. Colombia.
Gracias, señor presidente.
Thank you, Chair. Just a reference to plans in the plural, but there only seems to be one plan here, the GANP. So I think it's the global plan and regional plans, because there are several of them. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Colombia. Creo que es la versión en español.
I think it's the Spanish version which is the problem.
It's not well translated, so we can take that offline. Thank you very much.
Aye. Netherlands.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I would like to make the proposal to change the words increase efforts in strengthening just by the word strengthen. So it would read strengthen the relationship between the GASP, the GANP and the newly developed GASEP. Thank you.
Thank you, Netherlands. Any objection to that change? No? J. Okay, I'm seeing no objection to J. So with the changes proposed, we have completed recommendation 1.1/1. We now move to recommendation 1.2/1, global technical level of the 6th edition of the Global Air Navigation Plan, Doc 9750. Any proposed amendment to A? Italy?
Okay, we propose to delete from the line 2 formal before involvement, and then add a formalized ASBU panel project team. Then add assuring cross ICAO panel representation to improve transparency, consistency and stability.
Can you please repeat Italy?
How is the point A? Agree with the proposed change management process to maintain up-to-date aviation system block upgrade framework with the involvement of a formalized ASBU panel project team, ensuring cross-ICAO panel representation to improve transparency, consistency and stability. Yeah, thanks, Mr. Chairman. Thanks for the comment. I think we just need to clarify that the aviation system block upgrades panel project team and the global vision team, that's as we call, they will be both incorporated into the GANP study group. This will guarantee the formalization of these two. So I don't know if I clarified the doubt or if we need to include something, because this will be part of the new GANP study group. Would this satisfy? For me, it's okay. The important thing is the group is formalized as a part of the change management process. So this is important. If it's okay that is a formalized group, for me it's okay.
Yes, it will be formalized. The intention is that this would be formalized. Yes. Germany?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In fact, the explanation or the information given by the Secretariat by Saulo is fine. We were not, in Germany, we were not aware of this. So, and he made the offer, I think, to clarify this somewhere in the way he has explained. So I would be happy if we could have this, because we had difficulties when we discussed the role really of this panel project team. We were aware of it's there, but the role is not really clear, and that's the point of the formalization. And I think the explanation given is fine, but to have it somewhere laid down, it would be helpful. And the other aspect is this cross-ICAO, cross-ICAO panel representation really is something which also is our concern. So if we could have some text at the right place to explain this, what we have heard already now would help us. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Germany. In fact, we will try to include this in the report, but as part of the clarification, the ASBU PPT is a multidisciplinary working group because the ASBUs is a multidisciplinary framework, and therefore all the members of the ASBU PPT, they were nominated by the chairman of the ICAO panels of experts together with the secretary of each of the panels. I have to say that this group now comprises around more than 50 experts, and they do have regional representation because we make sure that all this group had regional representation. Thank you very much.
Okay, so thanks. So the secretary will include words in the main body of the text to cover what you agreed. So we'll take it that we will accept A as is. Okay. See, Republic of Korea, are we still speaking on A?
Yes, thank you, Chair. I would like to request a clarification whether the proposed ASBU change management process intends dynamically adopted the change on demand, freeing from the existing 3-year timeline. Thank you.
Can you repeat the request for clarification?
Okay, thank you, Chair. I request a further clarification regarding the ASBU change management process, whether the proposed change management process intends to dynamically adopt the change on demand, freeing from current existing 3-year time framework of change of the ASBU framework. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Republic of Korea. I'm going to try to, I think I understood the question. So the proposed change management process that we are proposing in working paper 19 for the ASBU framework, its intent is to update the ASBU framework in a continuous basis. And this is one of the reasons why we would like to migrate the ASBU framework to this portal. However, to the digital portal. However, this doesn't mean that we will not maintain stability of the framework. That's why we have been using a template to update the ASBU framework, and what we will really update is the content of the ASBU framework, not the structure. Thank you very much.
Colombia.
Thank you, sir. I just am suffering from some confusion, and I'd like the Secretariat to help us with this paper and the report in general. Reference was made to a study group. Now we're talking about an expert panel, and reference has also been made to a group of experts. So I wonder if we're referring in all cases to the same thing for this work, and in that case we need to harmonize the terminology in referring to this group. Thank you.
Thanks, Columbia, and good morning again, everybody. Yes, we were a little bit surprised by the request for this Global Air Navigation Plan Study Group, but happy to run in that direction. So with this draft and the paper that you all accepted, we did have this panel project team. Now, because of your further deliberations and the request for this GANP study group, we would bring the requirements of that underneath the auspices of the GANP study group, so that the team that worked on the technical details would then work through the Global Air Navigation Plan study group and onto the Commission from there. So the point is that we've put an extra layer into the process, the administration of the process, but that's so that we can keep the people who are experts in their particular domains, whether it's at a strategic level, such as the visionary team, or the technical level for the PBT team, the panel project team, that they can still continue their work within the framework of the Global Air Navigation Plan Study Group. So what you're seeing here is what will now, because of the agreement by the committee to move to a Global Air Navigation Plan Study Group, is one of the working groups of that study group that will then report through the study group. Have I made myself clear there? Thank you.
Thank you, Secretariat. Germany?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. No worries, not on groups and teams. It was the proposal from Italy in the last line for recommendation A, where the word consistency was added. So it was about to read improved transparency, consistency and stability. I would like to remind on this word consistency. I haven't got a feedback yet from your side. Thank you.
Okay, the Secretariat is happy to accept that if there's no objection from the committee. Okay, I see none. Okay, we'd like to move on to B and then we'll take coffee. Of Italy?
At the beginning of the sentence, change agree in principle with welcome the ASBU framework, and then also delete the consider. So now the read welcome the ASBU framework and the initial version of the basic building block framework.
Objection to this, Australia?
Yeah, we think we're happy to welcome Italy, but we're not so big about the getting rid of the consider bit.
So Italy, as you recall, it was initially to agree and the committee agreed to change it to consider. Go ahead, Italy.
No, I don't understand. Can you repeat?
So originally the proposal was to agree to the initial version of the basic building block framework. Following interventions from the committee, it was agreed to change the proposal to consider the initial version. So this recommendation is based on what the committee agreed to. So if there is no objection, we'll take the first proposal from Italy, but leave the words consider the initial version. Okay. Okay, thank you. So we will break for coffee at this time, and please be back on time.